Okay, let's dive right into this explainer of Michael Bomar's groundbreaking work. We're tracking a single, absolutely thrilling theological mystery that's been hiding in plain sight across ancient biblical and Enoch texts. Today, we're exploring a framework where divine identity, rejected wisdom, and apocalyptic revelation aren't just isolated, random ancient ideas. No, they're parts of one massive, unified narrative. And honestly, solving this specific mystery, it's going to fundamentally change how we read and understand these ancient texts forever.
So, rather than just giving you a dry academic lecture, we are going on an investigative journey. We want to uncover the subterranean architecture beneath those familiar stories you thought you knew. Bomar's work poses a really fascinating question. What actually happens when we take the most basic Sunday school statements about God and connect them to the wild, hallucinatory, apocalyptic visions found in texts like the Book of Enoch? Well, when you put simple truths right next to bizarre heavenly realms, cosmic judgments, and giant Nephilim, an entirely new structural reality starts to emerge.
Now, to navigate all this material with some intellectual stealth, we've got to rely on the texts themselves as our primary evidence. We have to set aside our inherited interpretations and kind of calcified beliefs. Bomer actually frames this approach using what he playfully calls Mulder's 10 Commandments of Discrete Learning. Yeah, that's a direct nod to Fox Mulder from the X-Files. So we're approaching this ancient theology exactly like a sci-fi investigation. We follow the evidence, honor the text before the interpretation, and constantly remember that hidden things are usually hidden for a very specific reason.
Let's look at Section 1, Identity as Theological Anchor.
Before we get into all the apocalyptic judgments or heavenly thrones, we absolutely have to establish a clear intellectual baseline. Think of it like this. Covenantal language is essentially a job title. When ancient texts say, "The Lord is my shepherd" or "my fortress," that's describing a role or a historical relationship. But essential language? That's the spiritual DNA. When texts say, "God is love" or "God is light," that is an absolute declaration about the unchangeable nature of reality itself within this framework.
According to Bomar's analysis, these four pillars, love, light, spirit, and truth, create this beautifully unified, dynamic pattern. And they aren't just pretty poetic metaphors, they interact constantly. Light literally exists to expose what is hidden in the dark, right? And truth exists to aggressively divide the righteous from the corrupted. When you view God through these four specific pillars, well, the ancient texts stop looking like a rigid list of moral rules. Instead, they transform into a revealing reality that actively pushes back against darkness and sets the stage for a massive cosmic confrontation.
Moving right along to Section 2, Wisdom Offered and Refused.
You know, in the ancient world, wisdom wasn't just a concept or a piece of good advice. She was a living, active, heavenly reality. And the steps laid out here map a deeply tragic story arc. Wisdom is present at the dawn of time, peaceful and creative. But step 3 is the real heartbreak. Humanity actively pushes her away. And then, step 5 is the ominous consequence. Because when wisdom is refused as a gentle guide, she doesn't just disappear. No, she bides her time to return later as an unavoidable absolute judgment. This specific passage from 1 Enoch 42 is the ultimate pivot point of this whole ancient framework. The world made a definitive choice. Wisdom came down to offer the secrets of life. Humanity actively pushed her out. And when she returned to heaven, she essentially locked the door behind her. This singular inciting incident relocates all true revelation totally out of human reach, and that creates a massive, highly dangerous spiritual void right here on Earth.
And that brings us to Section 3, Watchers and Corrupted Knowledge.
So nature abhors a vacuum, right? When true wisdom was refused, something far more sinister descended to fill that void. Enter the Watchers. They introduced this illicit, dark mirror of knowledge. According to the specific traditions in 1 Enoch, these beings crossed forbidden boundaries to teach humanity destructive secrets. They weren't teaching enlightenment. They were teaching the forging of iron swords for war, mixing cosmetics to seduce and manipulate, and cutting roots for dark spells. They basically offered enchantment and power that was entirely detached from any sort of obedience or divine order. Okay, let's clarify some myths versus facts, because the Watchers aren't just cosmic rule breakers. They are the exact architectural opposites of wisdom. Look at the dichotomy we have here. True wisdom is a gift received for life, but the Watchers represent knowledge violently seized for power.
And this is incredibly relevant to us today. I mean, where do we see knowledge being seized for domination right now? Whether we're talking about unregulated technologies, weapons, corporate manipulation, the Enochic texts warned thousands of years ago that when knowledge is stripped of moral order, ordinary instruction fails, and massive intervention becomes absolutely mandatory.
Which takes us to Section 4, the hidden sun revealed.
Because humanity embraced the destructive knowledge of the Watchers, heaven has to answer. And it answers with an explosive public unveiling. Here's the ultimate theological plot twist. The apocalyptic judge isn't just some angry executioner who randomly shows up at the end of time. No way. In the similitudes of Enoch, this Son of Man is the exact same wisdom that humanity previously bullied and rejected. Only now, stepping out of hiddenness, the dynamic has completely changed. It's no longer an invitation to learn. It is an absolute verdict delivered with total authority.
Now, Bomar's analysis points out something profound. By comparing Enoch's apocalyptic Son of Man with the Gospel of John's concept of the Logos, or the divine word. Both ancient traditions are actually answering the exact same mystery. How does hidden, pre-existent truth finally become visible to confront a corrupted world? John focuses on light piercing the darkness through a physical presence, while Enoch focuses on the terrifying disclosure of a final judgment. It's essentially Bomar discovering the exact same master blueprint used by two very different ancient architects. Pretty cool, right?
And that brings us to Section 5, Judgment on the Throne.
So we've finally arrived at the grand cinematic climax. The radiant throne of glory descends to completely shatter the fortresses of earthly political systems. Now, in this ancient framework, the throne is not just a fancy royal chair. It is the absolute, unhideable center of truth. It represents the terrifying moment where the hidden underlying architecture of reality is finally laid bare. Every secret motive, every corrupted system, and every hidden injustice is dragged violently right into the light for the entire cosmos to witness.
Think about how often modern human institutions rely on concealment to survive. I mean, empires, corporations, corrupt leaders. They maintain their grip through non-disclosure agreements, classified files, manipulation, brute force. But heavenly glory? It operates in the exact opposite way. It does not try to imitate human military power. It simply operates through terrifying absolute transparency. It doesn't fight earthly rulers on their own terms. It completely vaporizes their power by revealing that their authority was really nothing but a temporary, desperately hidden illusion all along.
And through all of this chaos, the righteous stand as vital evidence on a cosmic investigative board. The elect in these ancient texts, they aren't just passively sitting in a courtroom waiting to be rescued. They are walking, breathing proof that the corrupted way of the Watchers was never the only option. Their ability to endure with integrity in a distorted world basically proves that true wisdom was always accessible if you just chose to look for it. Their lives are the living validation that the final verdict is completely just.
This brilliant academic mapping comes from Dr. Michael Bomar's publishing emblem, Uniting Technology, Psychology, and Narrative. His work essentially acts as the map that guides us out of a really complex maze. Synthesizing these disparate, incredibly old texts is a massive game changer for historical theology. Why? Because it takes seemingly random apocalyptic visions and reveals the highly unified subterranean structure that has been secretly binding them together for millennia.
Apocalyptic literature isn't just about predicting the fiery end of the physical world. It's actually a profound psychological tool meant to disrupt our hardened beliefs right now, today. It forces us to ask ourselves, what illusions are we desperately clinging to? Whether it's the illusion that our status protects us or the calcified assumption that seizing power guarantees our safety, these texts promise that every single illusion will eventually shatter upon contact with absolute truth.
So I want you to truly consider that. When the hidden architecture of reality is finally exposed, what will happen to the empires you've built? I leave you with that provocative thought, inviting you to look past the surface and seek the subterranean wisdom hiding in plain sight. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.